I want to talk a little bit about felt sense tonight. And I think it's such an interesting thing. It is crucial. It is so important because we can do a lot of this work, like spiritual work, self-development, and so on. We can do so much of it, but if we don't involve the felt sense in it, it can often be quite, maybe not fruitless, but we certainly get a lot less from it. And how many know the somatic experiencing, the Eugene, no, not the somatic, the focusing, the Eugene Gentlin's work? Yeah. So just to say, it's like Eugene Gentlin was the one who coined the word felt sense. And I think it's interesting to see where it comes from, because I think it says a lot about why it's so important. So the felt sense comes from, I think it was his PhD. He was, when he did his PhD, his supervisor was Carl Rogers. Lucky guy, right? He looked at the different kind of therapies that were around. So there's like Fritz Perls with the Gestalt thing. There was, of course, Carl Rogers with the whole humanistic approach to therapy. There was Albert Ellis with the rational emotive theory, the thing that later developed into CBT. And he was like, so we got all these therapies around. Which one is the best, right? Let's figure out which one is the best, and then we're just going to do that one. That's easier. And so he did a lot of studies, looked at a lot of people having sessions and over time, and did some different ways of measuring progress and so on. And what he discovered was, actually, it doesn't matter what kind of therapy you're doing. It hardly even matters who's your therapist. The one thing that more than anything else predicted progress was something that the client was doing. He discovered that the clients who included in their, when they spoke about their experience, who included talking about their felt sense experience, they made progress. And so he thought, that's very interesting. Maybe we can create a new kind of therapy based on this insight. And so he created focusing. And after that, a whole host of different therapies have emerged out of that. For example, somatic experiencing that I mentioned before. So this is, I think this is a very nice framing to say there's something about this felt sense that's really crucial. Right, one more participant joining us. So welcome to, wait, almost there. Yeah, welcome to. So I adopted the title for this evening, using felt sense in developing self-knowledge. So I was thinking, starting about like, why do we need to develop self-knowledge? I suppose that to this particular group of people, I don't have to sell that much. You're probably already thinking that, you know, developing self-knowledge is not such a bad idea, but I'm still going to say a little bit about it. So you can say, why is it important to develop self-knowledge? And the short answer is just because if you want to live a fulfilling life, then it's a really good idea to know how you function. When you think about living a rich and fulfilling life, we all have strategies. We all have ideas about what we need to do in order to have a fulfilling life. Like, you know, maybe you think it's, if I make a lot of money, surely that's gonna, you know, can't hurt, right? That's gonna be a good idea. Or some people say, no, it's about, you know, I have to achieve great things so that, you know, when I get old, I can look back on a life and be proud of myself and think this was a life well spent. Other people, they go like, money, achieve great things. No, I'm just going to have as much fun as possible. You only live once. Let's do this. It's like, let's collect as much cool and interesting experiences as possible. I want to try it all. I want to go to the buffet and taste everything, right? Other people, they might say, there's something about being dependent on other people. It always gets you into trouble. The right strategy must be to isolate yourself and get as self-sufficient as you possibly can, right? Other people might say to have the good life, I need as many followers as possible on Instagram. Or how many have this strategy? No one here? Okay, cool. Just checking. Because if you did, I want to know how you do it. No, but so these strategies that I mentioned, how many can recognize one or more of them and say, oh, kind of sounds reasonable? Okay, cool. Some. And you probably have others. Now, the interesting thing is when you start examining these life strategies, you find something very interesting. You find that we can often be extremely enthusiastic about one of these life strategies. We can believe that it is the absolute right life strategy, and we can say, how many years have you been, following it? And you might say decades. And then we go like, well, are you there yet? Has it worked? And you go, not quite, but I'm sure that if I just keep doing it a little longer, then it's gonna work, right? And we go like, why do you believe that? Why do you believe that something that hasn't quite worked for decades is gonna work within, the next year or so? And this is because the human mind has certain annoying features. And one of the annoying features is that it is very possible for us to be super enthusiastic about certain courses of action, even if we have very little evidence that it's a good course of action. And we can always sell ourselves the idea, no, it's the right thing, I just have to do it a little more. So that's very interesting. And the fact that we have a lot of ideas about how to engage with ourselves and engage with life, which are dubious. There are two sources that tells us this. One source is modern cognitive science and modern experimental psychology. So there's been a ton in positive psychology and experimental psychology. There's a lot of research that has shown that we believe some really weird things, and that we are fully able to keep believing them, even if they are problematic, to say the least. If you know the work of Kahneman, you know about confirmation bias, for example. If you believe something, you are much more susceptible, and you are much more likely to give importance to evidence that supports your belief, and you are very likely to either discredit or not even notice evidence that seem to disprove your beliefs. That's of course very problematic, right? It's one of the reasons we can hold flawed beliefs for a very long time, even though acting from those flawed beliefs causes us a ton of trouble in life that we then can't quite understand where it comes from. So if we don't develop self-knowledge, we end up living in a bit of a Kafkaesque world, a world where we do things and it seems logical to us that this should work, this should make us happy, this should, be a good thing. But somehow we are not getting quite the results that we are getting, and it's a bit of a mystery to us. And of course, if you then turn to the other source, which is ancient wisdom traditions, again, they are full of pointers. You can say it often when you read like Buddhist text, Sufi text, Christian mysticism, and so on, you will see that a lot of what they are talking about there is they're saying things about the world and about you as a human being that seems counterintuitive to us. Some of the things they say, of course, is turn the other cheek, love your enemies, and stuff like that. And you go like, oh, is that really a good idea? Sometimes it seems a bit counterintuitive to us, because often we have beliefs that are worth challenging. They are not quite true, but we believe them. They're not quite good guides in life, but we still think they are. And so a lot of spiritual teaching is, you can read a lot of spiritual teaching as basically just pointing to all the flawed ideas that human beings generally have. And so, of course, the turn the other cheek and love your enemies and stuff like this, you have that in Christianity. You also have the idea of cultivating loving kindness, metta meditation in Buddhism, which is also, you start by feeling love towards people you like, and then you move your way up to feeling love and kindness and compassion toward people you really don't like. It's something similar, saying that that's actually, it's a good idea to try and do that rather than plot your revenge. You might get more out of it. But there's, of course, other things that you read. One of my favorite things in Sufism is there's this saying where they say, if you don't have it, I take it away from you. And if you have it, I'll give it to you. And you hear something like that and you go like, what are they on about? Well, this sounds not quite right. But of course, they are pointing to the thing. If we connect it to our personal experience, some days you wake up in a good mood and you go out in the world, and when you go out in the world with just this general good mood, it seems that all your encounters just give you more positive energy, right? So when you have it, they give it to you. Some days you wake up grumpy and everybody's just like in your way and nagging you and annoying. So when you don't have it, people around you take it away from you. And it's interesting. Wisdom traditions are full of these. It's really a treasure trove. And then you can, of course, work your way up to induction Buddhism. They say you are already enlightened. You go like, really? That's not my experience. No, because your mind is constantly lying to you. Another thing that they say in Buddhism is there is no self. Also, puzzling thing to say, like, what do you mean there is no self? That is clearly my experience that there is a self. But again, there is the possibility that your mind is lying to you. And to live a fulfilling life, it's quite nice to say, okay, let's look at all these beliefs I'm carrying around and do some spring cleaning. Let's figure out which of these beliefs actually seem to have truth value and be good guides in life, and which of them are just not true, and I believe they're good guides, but they're really not. So does that make sense? This is why we want to develop self-knowledge. It's so that we can clean out the beliefs that don't serve us, basically. And it's from the minute beliefs about ourselves and relationships to the bigger beliefs, which are about the reality of nature and the reality of self and so on. So this is why we want to do it. Cool. And I've already said something about why it is difficult to develop self-knowledge. In a nutshell, it's difficult to develop self-knowledge because our mind have these annoying features, and because we can believe something is true, we can believe a strategy is a good strategy, even though there's tons of evidence to the contrary. By the way, if you want to see a fantastic demonstration of something like confirmation bias, look at all the polarized discussions that are in the world these days. Doesn't really matter which side you're on, right? You look at the COVID thing. Are you more to the side of like, yes, mask wearing, vaccines, shutdowns, that's the way to go? Or are you more towards the thing where you go like, let it wash over the population, and we gain herd immunity, and that's fantastic. When you look at the debates, each side is like completely blind to anything that contradicts their beliefs. It's a fantastic demonstration of confirmation bias, how people pick and choose whatever suits their beliefs, instead of going like, well, okay, I believe this, but I see that there is some evidence to the contrary. Let's look at all the evidence that we can see, and just we might not find an answer, but we can be open to all the evidence that is there. And of course, there's tons of polarizing. I don't have to mention all of them, right? It's like there's tons of polarizing debates at the moment. So you can say again, if you look at the, and I really love this. I find that looking at cognitive science and experimental psychology and findings there, and looking at the ancient wisdom texts, and then having a dialogue between those two, it's incredibly enriching. It is so rich to have that dialogue, and I really love it. So yeah, in expert, I already mentioned confirmation bias. There's impact bias. We tend to think that things have a bigger impact on our lives than they actually do. How many have experienced this, that you have been obsessing over a decision that you made, and you felt that it was a really important decision to make, and then you make it, and a month later you can't even remember what it was? How many have experienced that? Or maybe a year later you go like, it had zero significance, but at the time when you felt it, you were like, oh, this is like, that's going to make or break my life. So that's impact bias. We ascribe bigger impact, both negative and positive, to things. Of course, there's a rationalization, confabulation. Rationalization is sometimes, it's fantastic, right? It's like, you might have this like, I'm a kind person, and I'm a very inclusive person, and I listen a lot to other people, and I make decisions based on what everybody says. And then somebody says, actually, the last meeting we had in the work team, you didn't listen to a single other person, and everybody's time somebody said something, you just shut it down, right? I'm not sure you're such an inclusive and good person and a good listener. And then you go, oh no, but I mean, we were under time pressure, right? That was why. Normally I'm very good at this. So we have this annoying habit of rationalizing. So even in the face of evidence to the contrary, we'll figure out an excuse to preserve our beliefs. It's nothing bad. It's just, it's good to be aware that we do it. Confabulation is another thing which is very funny. It's like, sometimes if people ask you, why did you do that? And you literally have no idea. But your brain always provides you with an explanation. And you go like, yeah, seems reasonable. That was probably why. We know we do that. We fabricate explanations, even if we don't have the explanations. And of course, if you then look at the other side, if you look at the spiritual texts, they point to specific false ideas that we often carry. Like, for example, the illusion of separation. We think that we are separate individuals. Many spiritual texts tell you, no, you're not. We are profoundly interrelated in ways that you can't even imagine. But we uphold the illusion of separateness. If you look at something like the enneagram, it's a treasure trove of describing how different people uphold false beliefs. Like some people will say, I'm trying to feel safe. And the way I'm trying to feel safe is by predicting what might be dangerous and preventing it in advance. Sounds like sound logic, right? Sounds like, yeah, sure, of course. You see the dangers ahead of time, and you do take steps to prevent them. You should feel safe. However, you can also say, well, if all you ever pay attention to day in and day out is what can go wrong, is that really going to make you feel safe? Probably not. You're probably going to feel really, really unsafe and unnecessarily unsafe. Another example would be some people, they say, I really want to be liked. So I try to see what other people like and be that, right? Because if I am what other people like, I won't be rejected and I won't feel rejected. And if you then look a little closer, you go, well, actually, by engaging in that strategy, you are continuously rejecting yourself, right? You're rejecting everything that you think other people might not like. So you will feel rejected even before anybody else rejects you. So, and these are the kind of things that you see. These two examples comes out of the work with the enneagram. This description of different strategies that people can have that trap them in ways that where people end up spending an enormous amount of time on strategies that really are fundamentally flawed, but they can't see it. Cool. So fundamentally, why do we want to develop self-knowledge? It's because it's a really good idea in order to what do you call it? Yeah, to do the spring cleaning and see what are the kind of beliefs that do not serve us. And why is that difficult? Because if we approach the task by reflecting on it and thinking about it, we are using our minds and our minds are lying to us. It's a little bit like saying, I want to, the very tool that produce all the misconceptions, I'm going to try and use that to clear up the misconceptions. You see how this is difficult. I think in the description in the newsletter, I said this is a little bit akin to asking your eyes to look at the back of your eyes. It's very difficult. So it's a little bit like, you know how sometimes if you have a problem and you can't figure it out, it's really good to go and talk to a friend, right? And then that friend in the conversation, that friend is going to give you a different perspective. And in the conversation, you can have really interesting insights. So your mind needs a conversation partner, right? It can't figure it out on its own. It needs a friend. It needs somebody to talk to and go like, you know, this is how I see it. How do you see it? And here enters felt sense. Felt sense is exactly the perfect conversation partner for the mind. So when we include attention to felt sense, and I'm going to say more about what felt sense is. Felt sense is basically, it is more, it's not just physical, right? If you pinch yourself, you feel pain in your finger or something like that. I mean, sure, that's felt sense. But if you think about, I don't know, the last book you read that you thought was really, really cool, then you also feel something. Or as we're going to work later with, if you listen to music, you feel something. And that inner felt sense that you describe, it isn't quite just a physiological response, but it is very nice to describe it as a felt sense. So it's, sometimes I like to talk about it as the inner atmosphere. Like one day you feel really light and your head feels really open and spacious. Now, it's not that the physiological structure of your head has changed. It's just the inner atmosphere, the felt sense in your head feels different. Sometimes you hear it in language so much. Sometimes you say you have a heavy heart or you feel lighthearted. Now, of course, this is not your heart. That's your physiological heart doesn't change, but it's a description of your inner atmosphere. So this is the felt sense. Felt sense is a wonderful conversation partner for the mind because it allows the mind to carry out something like experiments. It's like you can say, okay, I think the key to happiness is to get promotions every year, right? I think the key to happiness is climbing the organizational ladder. How many believe that here? Okay, none of you hold this illusion. Okay, that's good. Then you can see the folly of it. But some says the key to happiness is climbing the organizational ladder. Okay, fantastic. Then now let's carry out an experiment. When you think about working for a promotion and climbing the organizational ladder, when you think about that and you describe what it is you do, what's your felt sense? And you might go like, well, you know, last time I got a promotion, I felt like I was walking on air. I was flying for a whole week. I felt amazing. You go, okay, cool, fantastic. This is where the belief comes from. How about before you got the promotion? Like the year where you were working to get the promotion, what was your felt sense? Oh, I felt a lot of tightness in the chest. I felt tightness in the belly. I felt woozy. I felt, you know, like this. And then you go, okay, so for a year you felt really bad, and then for a week you felt good. There's something fishy about your belief that hunting promotions is the key to happiness, right? It makes you feel good. Granted, it makes you feel fantastic for a week, but if it makes you feel bad for a whole year, there's something off, at least about your approach to doing this. I'm not saying that, you know, you shouldn't seek promotion. Maybe that's very nice, but this particular person, there was something fishy about how this person did it. So when we tune into felt sense, we can get surprising insights. How many people have been in a situations where they go like, I'm supposed to feel bad, but I'm not. If I tune into my felt sense, I don't. Maybe you're at a funeral and you feel light, almost happy. And you go like, no, that seems weird. Why do I feel like that at a funeral? How many have had counterintuitive inner states like this? Yeah. So inner felt sense where you go, why? And if you then listen to it and go like, well, the fact is I feel light and happy. Why might I feel light and unhappy? And you might think about it and go, well, actually, the person who just died lived an incredibly rich and fulfilling life. And they were happy and ready to go. Now that's beautiful to go at that point. So, and then you go, okay, fine. I hadn't thought about that. So can you see how the dialogue with the felt sense enables you to get certain insights? Same thing with sometimes, and those of you who have worked with me will know this kind of process, right? Sometimes some people say, I feel lonely and I feel alone and I don't want to feel alone, right? Then I will ask annoying questions. I will ask questions like, okay, cool. If you for a moment assume that there is nothing wrong with feeling alone, describe to me the actual physical felt sense of it. And you go, okay, I feel really tight in my heart. And I might say something like, yes, because you don't want to feel alone, so you tighten in order not to feel it. But if you trust me a bit here and just go to the felt sense of the aloneness itself, what does that feel like? You know, okay. It just feels like there's nothing there. Nobody around, there's nothing there. You go, okay, fine. Describe that felt sense a little bit more, not assuming that it's a bad thing. Let's keep it open, the open inquiry. You might go, actually, it feels incredibly peaceful. Oh, fantastic. Okay. Keep moving into the peace. And you might discover something that is completely counterintuitive to you, which is aloneness is nothing other than peace with a negative label on it. And so these are the kind of things that's enabled by felt sense. When we bring felt sense into our explorations, we can discover incredible things like that. And it really is transformative. I find that when we include felt sense in the exploration of many of the things that we avoid in life, we find that the things we avoid in life are often also the things we seek in life. If you look at the some people, like how many people here really enjoy being incredibly angry? Okay, okay, fantastic. How many people really dislike being angry? Fantastic. How many people love to feel intensely alive and energized? See, that's interesting, because if you tune into the felt sense of anger, if you set aside all the problems with it and say, okay, I'm just going to explore the felt sense of it, there is so much turned onness and energy. Have you noticed when you're angry, you show up, you're clear, you're very vocal and articulate about what you want and you don't want. You feel you got so much oomph. I remember it's a funny little story. When I was doing my PhD, sometimes I would, write something and give to my supervisor. And my supervisor would go like, I have no idea what this is weird. Why do you say this? And this concept doesn't seem clear. And da, 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 da. And I would try to explain to her nice first, right? And she wouldn't get it. And at some point, I would get angry. I would actually get angry. And I was like, oh, come on, what I'm saying is just boom. And she would look at me and go like, yeah, well, why don't you write that? I go, oh, okay, yeah. So there's something wonderful about this. The energy of anger makes you really clear and, gives you this oomph and so on. Now, this is one of the insights that you can get if you include felt sense in the debate. If you just explore anger from a analytical mind space, you might not get that. But when you feel the felt sense of the anger, you go like, there's much more to anger than what I think there is. Does that make sense? Cool. So let me see. Do I want to say something more about? No, I think it's time for us to shift gears and do a little bit of try some of these things out. But before we do, I think I'm just going to stop the recording, because this was the presentation. That's what I'm going to send out.